What secret did you find out about someone that permanently changed the way you looked at them? In my early days as a lawyer, I represented a sweet old widower with Parkinson's disease who was being sued by a local store for groceries his late wife had purchased on credit without ever paying for. I felt awful for him. And then, shortly before trial, I found out he'd done jail time for molesting children. There is an engineering professional at my workplace that likes to wear pricey articles of clothing. He even sports a Breitling wristwatch, priced from $3,000 to over $17,000, as his work timepiece. Turns out that he and his wife are buried beneath a mountain of credit card debt, and while I do not look down my nose at him, I definitely view his attire and accessories differently knowing that fact. My wife's bestie confided in us that, while short of money, was moonlighting as a professional dominatrix. Until then we had thought that she was super vanilla. There was this one girl I'd known for a long time but wasn't massively close to, who we all thought was being terribly controlled by her boyfriend. She would tell us that he decided when you was allowed to drink, when she was allowed to go out, what she was allowed to do, etc., and that he hid things around the house, and that he had started to impose bedtimes for her and shout at her over what seemed like extremely minor things. We all thought he was awful and encouraged her to leave. Then she moved in with me and I realized she was extremely emotionally unstable and an alcoholic. Within months, I found myself wanting to do, or in some cases actually doing, all the things she said her controlling boyfriend had done. I remember one time after trying to remain patient with her for a while, she said one thing that was relatively minor and it was the last straw. I just snapped and screamed at her. I then got phone calls from all our mutual friends to talk about my behavior and anger management, presumably as a result of the story being told back to them in a somewhat biased way. So, in a way, her secret changed my opinion of him. Similar-ish situation I was in. So my sister starts dating this guy. He left his ex for my sister. My sister and I are pretty close, so I hang out with this guy quite a bit while hanging with her. He tells us all these crazy things his ex did and how she was this psycho bitch. So, of course, I'm like, whoa, good on you for leaving, she sounds terrible. Eventually, the guy starts to get super clingy and annoying, showing up at my sister's house randomly at all hours of the night. Staying at her house when she goes to work on his days off. They had only been together a couple months at this point and it was too much for her. She breaks it off. Fast forward about 6 months. I'm a groomsman in my buddy's wedding. I really hit off with the maid of honor, bride's cousin. We were chatting before the rehearsal dinner. She seems super cool. End up sitting by her at dinner and laughing and talking the whole night. After I get home, I look her up on Facebook, because I'm a creep. Finally find her page and pull it up. Who do I see in her profile picture with her? My sister's ex-boyfriend. I'm like, what the fuck? Creep on her profile. Definitely her boyfriend. I message her like, dude, you're dating his name? She confirms. Ask for how long. She tells me it's been like 3 years, but they broke up for a few months while he was with someone else and got back together. This chick is the crazy ex-girlfriend. I tell her that the person he was with while they were broken up was my sister. She says she knew already. She knew who I was and apparently was freaking out when her cousin told her I was friends with her husband and would be in the wedding with her. Against my better judgment, I continue being friends with her. She invited me over for a Super Bowl party and a few other get-togethers at her and the boyfriend's place. Start getting closer with this girl and start to see that the guy is actually super controlling and was physically and emotionally abusive. Took everything I had to not knock his teeth in. Eventually convince her to leave him and move in with me just to get away from him. Now, it's 3 years later and we are getting married next year. Crazy roller coaster ride that has been. A friend I grew up started dating a guy and quickly got pregnant and married at 25 or so. One night, hanging out with her and her husband, he's like, did she ever tell you how we met? Apparently she was an escort since right after she turned 18. He was one of her Johns, but they took a liking to one another. They've since been divorced. My uncle forced my dying granddad to sell over the family beach house for a very low price. He is now a millionaire. Here's a positive one. My wife, a defense attorney, has a work colleague who is the biggest asshole you will ever meet. A blowhard who revels in winning at any cost and brags about the snarky things he does to really twist the knife. He's known as a sharp legal mind, but I get the sense that he likes to try to screw weaker ADAs or other counselors and loves it when he catches them in some technicality. He makes all those stereotypes about lawyers seem valid. My church had a sort of Habitat for Humanity-esque service weekend where we were rehabbing an old warehouse into a new space as a temporary women's shelter for battered women. The offices were already up. but the individual rooms needed to be refloored, the bathrooms retiled, sheetrock needed to be hung and primed. To my surprise, I saw there with a tool belt helping to install a sink. Long story short, he donates his legal services to that one shelter, helping to set up restraining orders, divorces, custody, etc. for abused women trying to get away from their abusive partners/family. At first I wondered if this was some sort of court-ordered community service. It wouldn't surprise me if he had done something to deserve it and then pissed off a judge somewhere. But no, the coordinator for the shelter who was working with my church says that he had been doing that for the past few years. Apparently his wife's previous husband was an abuser and he has a real heart for people in that situation. The local park homeless alcoholic was once a professor of ancient history and dead languages and could speak and write in languages many of us would never even see. He used to teach at Trinity College until he was convicted for his wife's death. How she died or if he did it is a mystery to me, but one person I've spoken to reckons it was an accident and another says they don't think he did it. Made me see the reality that no matter who you are, you could end up in a personal hell. It only slightly changed my perception, but I was about 9/10 when my dad told me why he and my mom split up. His exact words in a sad tone were she was seeing another man, he wouldn't tell me who it was. From now on, every time an affair is mentioned I give a quick glance to my mom. She still doesn't know I know. There was a guy I worked with that was kinda handsy, but generally really nice all the time. I learned he was gay, but in the closet. It was then I started noticing how he treated everyone else, kinda douchy. He isn't handsy with anyone else. So all the positive attention was him trying to flirt? I guess. He was not very good at it. I had a conversation with him when he asked me to lunch. I had to awkwardly explain that I am married, etc. I feel like I may have accidentally led him on. I feel a little bad about it, but I wore my ring every day and I have pictures of my family on my desk. We are still on friendly terms and I introduced him to my circle of gay bro friends to help him acclimate to the culture. We became decent enough friends, but a lot of the flirt-like behavior stopped. My grandma cheated on my grandpa when he was in the war. One of her kids isn't his. Everyone knows but no one talks about it. A family member's ex-wife of several years whom I was still close with asked me never to leave my daughter alone with my relative. She said that the reason they never had kids was that he confided when incredibly drunk that he had uncontrollable desires towards young, really young girls. He was upset and told her he felt he was evil and deserved to die. She asked him if he ever did anything and he said no and asked her to forgive him and asked God to make him better. Again he was like blackout intoxicated. This was surprising information. She didn't tell me in spite and actually still loves him very much. I haven't heard or seen evidence of grooming or any extra attention paid to any of the female children in my family. He could have just been really drunk and out of his mind, but there is zero way I'm going to leave my daughter alone with him or let her out of my sight at family functions. I don't have evidence that what she said was true, so I can't really do anything with the information other than be diligent. I just found out yesterday that my wife, 29, a teacher, started an affair with a student, 18, of hers about 2 months ago. We have been together for 10 years and married for 4. We have a 4-month-old daughter and she threw it all away, career, marriage, and family. I had no idea anything was wrong until 6 days ago when I found her crying in bed and she told me she was depressed, no longer in love with me, and suicidal mostly because of my drinking habits. I took sole responsibility, swore off drinking, and had us signed up for marriage counseling the same day, plus got her in contact with a postpartum depression group. 6 days later she is sent to a crisis center by her school and I find out everything after the psychiatrist there makes her tell me the truth when I show up to bring her home. My life is so fucked right now that I can't even sleep and I'm holding a 4-month-old baby trying not to cry while her cheating mother is 5 miles away in a hospital room. Safe to say I will never see my wife the same way again. Thanks for watching Team Astro. Have you had anything similar happen to you? Let us know down in the comments section. Subscribe for more videos.